Hey guys, it's Deana, and today I'm doing something really fun. I'm going to bake up some of these Portos cheese roll that my good friend Debra ordered for me from Southern California. Portos is a family-owned bakery in Southern California, and they're very well known for their baked goods, especially their puff pastry cheese roll with a cream cheese filling. So a lot of people here in the Bay Area where I live have been ordering them online and baking it in their own home. I've heard so many rave reviews about it, I had to try it out myself. So in order to do a copycat, I'm going to test out the actual Portos cheese roll. I've also made my own sheet of puff pastry, a quicker version than the traditional method, with some real good high fatty content butter to get that rich butter flavor in a puff pastry. I'm also going to do a comparison with a store-bought puff pastry. For those of you who wanted to save some time, it's going to give you a really nice flaky crust as well. It just won't have that buttery flavor goodness that we love about a homemade puff pastry or from your local bakery. The reason why a store-bought puff pastry won't have that high butter content is because they're made mostly with shortening, and the shortening will puff up the layers of dough, thin dough, but it will not give you that butter flavor because shortening just doesn't have that flavor. It's very mild in flavor. It has a greasy filling, but not the buttery flavor, the rich buttery flavor that we all love so much, and it makes a puff pastry good. In order for me to not mess this up and confuse each of the pastries, I've also labeled my parchment paper with Portos homemade and pre-made on there, just so I won't confuse it. I'm going to be baking them side by side and seeing how it comes out. But before I can bake them, I'm going to throw them all in the freezer so that they come to the same temperature as the Portos pre-made ones my good friend ordered for me. So let's get started. Before we begin, we'll need to decide if we're using a homemade puff pastry or a pre-made one from the supermarket. If you are making a puff pastry from home, you'll need 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, 2/3 cup of ice water, and some really high fat butter. I was trying out a fast, quick method to making the puff pastry, so I froze the butter and grated it into tiny pieces to incorporate into the flour. However, it didn't make it as fluffy and puffy as a puff pastry should be. It was more like a pie crust, a puffy one, no less. I will be making a new video with a different method for the puff pastry so that it comes out puffier and flakier with better lamination. Instead of using the method I am using here by shredding the frozen butter, just keep your butter in the refrigerator until it's time for use. Mix together the flour, water, and salt until the dough forms and doesn't stick to the bowl anymore. Then you'll roll the dough out into a square that's about 14 by 14 or 12 by 12. In the center of this dough, you'll add the butter, but take the butter out from the refrigerator and slice it in half lengthwise. Place it in the center and wrap it up like a ladder or a GIF. Once you have your first row, then you'll begin to do the lamination process using my tri-fold method, where you fold the dough into a tri-fold like a letter, and then in thirds again the opposite direction and roll it out. If the dough becomes too soft to work with, it's time to put it back in the refrigerator. You'll know because it'll start to stick more to the table, and you don't want to add more flour dusting. The updated method for the puff pastry instructions will be available on my website. The link is below this video in the description section. Let's make the cream cheese filling. You'll need 1 8-ounce box of regular cream cheese, 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I didn't add it to this mix because there's enough butter in the pastry for my cholesterol today. You'll need the butter to make the filling taste like Portos. Add half a cup of sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 egg. Mix all the ingredients together really well until smooth. Everything should be at room temperature for easy mixing. Once the cream cheese mixture is well incorporated and smooth, You're going to want to put it into a piping bag, either a reusable pastry or a Ziploc one will work just as fine. You'll just need to cut the corner by 1/2 inch to create an opening for the cream cheese to come out of. Here's my easy trick to putting the cream cheese in neatly without creating a whole big mess. Grab some saran wrap, place the cream cheese in the center, fold the saran wrap sheet across lengthwise and then across the widthwise and roll it up without pushing the cream cheese out from the open end. Now you have an easy bundle of filling that you can easily slip into a pastry bag or a Ziploc bag for easy filling later on. Keep the cream cheese filling in the refrigerator until it's time to use. Now that we have our puff pastry, whether you make it from home or buy from the grocery store, and our cream cheese filling, we can begin to make our copycat cheese roll. Since I'm experimenting, I will be using my homemade puff pastry dough first. I'm going to roll this out into a rectangle so it's easier to measure and cut out the dough that I need to make the cheese roll. So I'll roll this out large enough so that I can cut it into 3-inch wide rectangular sheets that will produce 3 or 4 cheese rolls. You can use a ruler for more accurate measurement. I'm eyeballing my roll. While you work on yours, you'll cut all your pieces at the same time. Since I'm experimenting, I'm going to be using one sheet of this and another one from the pre-made store-bought puff pastry. I'm dusting the dough so that I can roll it up and set it aside while I work on my first set of cheese rolls. If your strip of dough shrinks a little bit, just roll it out again so that you have a 3-inch width and a 10 or 13-inch length in order to create either 3 puff pastry cheese roll or 4. Slice the end of the dough to even it out. Make any adjustments if needed by rolling. Fill the center of the dough with cream cheese filling, one long strip across. Roll one side of the dough over the cheese filling. Press down lightly. Using some water, seal the other side and roll it over to the center. Press down lightly to form the seal. Flip it over. We're going to create our diagonal cuts to form our cheese rolls. Press down lightly, and there you have your cheese rolls. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the pre-made puff pastry from the grocery store. This way we have something to compare to the Portos cheese roll that was shipped, along with the homemade quick puff pastry and the store-bought frozen puff pastry. The finished cheese rolls will need to go back into the refrigerator for 20 to 30 minutes to set up again before baking. While the oven is preheating to 400 degrees, we will need to prepare the egg wash. 1 egg plus 1 tablespoon of water mixed really well together. On top of this, we'll add confectioner sugar. These are larger crystal baking sugar that will create a nice crunch on top of our cheese rolls. Once you have finished brushing on the egg wash and applying the sugar crystals, you'll bake these little guys in the oven at 400 degrees for 18 to 20 minutes. It just depends on how hot your oven gets. If you're using convectioner setting, it will cook a little bit faster, so check in on them at the 15-minute mark to see how they're doing. Once they are golden brown, they are ready to be removed. Okay guys, so they're finally done and we get to check them out. Let's assess what we have. First, I baked the frozen Portos cheese roll that was shipped from LA. The color came out really beautiful. They have beautiful bubbles, lots of nice lamination that you can clearly see in the pastry itself. And so you know that you're gonna get a good crunch, a little good crispiness out of there and flakiness out of the pastry. My puff pastry didn't brown as nicely. It has puffed up a little bit, so it wasn't a complete fail, but I think by using the little bits of butter inside of the dough when I created it, it just was not enough separation for the lamination to clearly define the butter layer and the dough layer. So I think next time when I make the puff pastry again homemade, I'm going to use bigger chunks and just roll it in. I believe that you can do it really quickly and I'm gonna come up with a way to do it. So that is my next challenge for myself. It did puff up really nice, but it just didn't clearly define the layers of butter and dough itself. And shockingly, my favorite one was the store-bought puff pastry from the frozen section. It came out so beautiful. The color is nice and golden brown. It puffed up the highest, and you can clearly see the layers of lamination that happen inside the puff pastry. I also discovered that when I was rolling the dough out to fill it, that there are big chunks of what looks like or appears to be butter inside of the pre-made dough. So it's a good buy, guys. If you didn't want to make your own puff pastry and just make it really fast, you can do this super fast with a pre-made frozen, and hey, it saves time. It looks fantastic. It has the lamination. It's an easy, quick satisfaction to your taste bud. So I'm really happy with how the pre-made came out, because that means I don't necessarily have to make my own puff pastry, which is labor intensive even with the quick version. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial and tester. Now I'm going to take one for the team and enjoy these. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. And if you've enjoyed this video tutorial and experiment, click the like button below and subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions for future videos or comment on this one, please write your comments below for me. I'll be sure to answer them. I hope that you continue to practice and become the master chefs in your own home. For written recipes, please check out my website at www.deanathai.com and follow me on Instagram for new videos and alerts. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, goodbye.